All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Samurai Brothers, Matthew. It's been a while. We had to take a bit of a break, but we are now on episode 40 of our podcast. And sounds like you're taking a vacation.
Yeah, I'm in Vegas right now. So
Oh, okay. Well, that sure you're gonna have fun out there, but
and
we've
happy
got a lot of
Memorial.
things to discuss.
Yeah,
Obviously, we took a break last
and
week.
yeah, and happy Memorial Day to all our fans. Or
Mhm.
yeah,
All of our fans and for those that served. And so it was a break from the One Piece. But with that being said, though, we do have 2 chapters worth of discussions that we can cover today. And then also the Natsu Basho is over. So there's quite a bit that happened, Matthew. And I'm sure that you're going to be excited to talk about that today.
yeah, it was definitely an interesting basho to say the least.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go right into One Piece then. So 1148, we had Summers, had the Saint Summers of the God Knights. He has the giant children. Summers and Gunko have the giant children hostage and threatening to have them jump off. And Summers gave the ultimatum to King Jarul, which is that he has to burn the library, basically, which is and the school, which is a big thing because that means that it basically burns their history and their ability to spread knowledge to those of the younger generation. And obviously, that's something that Robin tried to prevent in the previous chapter. And so they're in a bit of a bind, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they're in quite a bind because they're holding the children hostage, and it's just, and even though one of the Jarul's granddaughter was like, I'm willing to take the sacrifice.
Right.
You
So,
see, and Robin, to be fair, did commendably, but I
right.
guess to a degree it does look like the God Knights are, I'm not gonna call them immortal. They're definitely
Well,
like
there.
Summers was definitely taking more hits than one would normally be able to take.
Well, it's like we previously discussed. You know how obviously Luffy and the crew were thrown into a gauntlet when they had to first fight CP9, who was supposedly the strongest of the Cipher Pole organizations. That was an enemy that they hadn't fought before, right? And
Yeah,
then,
and they had to definitely learn in order to jump to that next level that they were it did.
right. And then you got CP0, which, based on the fight that they had at Egghead, where Rob Lucci and Kaku were back, and the fact that they had been able to get stronger themselves to join that elite organization. So, you're going, and I would say that CP0 compared to CP9, even though CP9 is supposed to be the strongest of the cipher poles officially, but CP0 I think is well above, maybe 3 or 4 steps above CP9.
Yeah, but I'd say the Straw Hats have progressed more because Lucci and Kaku really didn't compare. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't they didn't progress as much as the Straw Hats have.
Right. But
With
so
the same
CP,
amount of time to train. They've
right.
had 2 years.
Yeah, but CP0 is supposed to be the enforcers of the world nobles. And then you've got the God Knights who are then, and I would say this, that the God Knights are probably like, they are the elite forces within the world nobles themselves.
Yeah, but from what I've seen, I think the God Knights are too dependent on whatever powers they have, whether they're um from Emu or they're devil fruits. I think they're too dependent on that. They because at the end of 148, Scopper Gabon just massacres Summers.
Yes.
And even Robin, took him out. And if it wasn't for his powers, she, there wouldn't have, So long story short, I think they're way too dependent on. I'm wondering if they even have, if they even work on. I'm wondering if they even do hockey at all. I think they're just they're just too. They've just become too dependent on these powers that they have. Like I said, regardless of the source, that they don't even consider the fact that they need to do something else, because you can still be immortal and lose. So,
well, with that being said, so Gruel decides to make the heart-wrenching decision to burn the school, burn the library. And then, like you said, Scopper Gabon comes in at the end to take on Summers. So, but at the same time, though, he captures Summers captures Robin, because obviously she exposed herself trying to, prevent what was happening. But I think you're right in the sense that Summers was really, really caught off guard with Scopper Gabon.
Yeah,
as you can see in the panel.
Yeah, and he had genuine you can. I love how what's his name? I love how Oda illustrates it to where you see genuine fear. So even though Summers might not have been killed by Scopper in that, in 1148, he still feared him. He had that that look on his face. So
yeah, and that's where it comes into now we get into 1149, which is that Summers seems to be in pain, and at the same time Scopper is saying that he's rusty.
that's definitely something that he pulled, considering that he's rusty. That's another thing. At the end of 1148, Scopper, you've only really been seeing even in flashbacks, you see him, still mostly in kind of a jovial mood. It's only at the end of that episode that you see him in this serious battle mode face. But and then Summers is with his arm is why isn't it growing back?
Right. And
which I do lends me to think, I do think he has a devil fruit, and I do think that some kind of hockey was in there. It's not been determined if Scopper has conquerors, but it does seem to lend credence to that.
Well, I would not be surprised, seeing as how he's the left hand of the Pirate King.
Yeah, at minimum, he's got armament.
Yeah. But it looks like his epitaph is Mountain Eater, based on what Summers is demanding to know why he's an Elbaf. And then they start fighting again. The captured crew is surprised by Scopper, although they don't know his true identity, save for obviously Robin, who overheard the epitaph Mountain Eater, which I'm assuming she knows a lot of. Well, obviously, since she knows about the history, she can associate Scopper's epitaph with his real name.
Right. So yeah, she's got that background in there.
Yeah, but one thing, and I've noticed that when I was reading comments on a lot of people when they were when I was looking at videos and such about covering this chapter, is Chopper has been very attentive to Scopper and his attacks, and I don't know if you noticed that or not.
Yeah, they have kind of been focusing in on that.
Yeah, which has been interesting. And then we see that yes, Scopper does take out Summers, although again, whether or not that goes back to the whole immortality thing, we won't know, but it looks like Summers has been neutralized for now.
Well, yeah, because in 1149, it's like he halves him, like
Mhm.
like right in like the torso. It's like
Yeah, he
it's like
bifurcates him.
it's like regardless of whether you're immortal or not, that's gonna take a while. It's like regardless of whether you're gonna grow an entire torso or they have to reconnect, that's gonna
Right.
take a while. So
Mhm.
he's been neutralized, and then he tries to go and help the children. And then he's got that monologue of it's like I can still put out the fire, I can still save the kids. But then we've got a an issue that's not completely one of those things that was not completely in his control.
Right. So then obviously we get back to the school has been set on fire. Um, and then it looks like Killingham is going to has set fire to the library, which obviously is painful for Robin and for Saul. But now we have to get back to the part where Ranya's apologizing to Yarul for saying that she's alive, but obviously this is just a situation where everyone is suffering, so we can't really fault her for that. But we see that Scopper makes his way to where Gunko is at, and he's trying to fight Gunko, and he's hoping that Colin doesn't give away his connection.
But then he does,
Yeah.
and Google basically uses him as the primary
Yep.
hostage.
Uses him as a hostage.
Yeah,
Now,
like literally, I will kill your son if you don't stop.
now the thing, and this is where I was watching Grand Line review about this in particular. Scopper is going to try and save him, even though he's being threatened by Gunko. Colin's going to try and hold out, but it looks like through flashbacks, Scopper decides to not go through with it. And I think Grand Line review was saying that this is probably due to observation hockey. He may have had a slight, in really developed, awakened observation hockey users, they can see a little
The
bit into
future,
the
right?
future. And that particular case we saw when Luffy was fighting Katakuri, because he had awakened observation hockey that allowed him to see a few seconds into the future.
Right, and we see Scopper seeing that he's not going to be able to save Colin in the current situation, so
Yeah.
He decides to take the strike. And then we get this weird thing from Gunko right after she takes out Scopper.
Yeah, and this is where now things and everybody now, the whole fandom is up in about, it's like, what exactly is happening here? So to put it into detail, so
Yeah,
obviously Kowloon is,
because we've got two things that happen. We have something with Gunko, and then there's
and then the other thing, which
yeah.
we'll discuss, but Colin is yelling for his father. He's saying, "Daddy, father," and that somehow awakens a memory in Gunko. And we see that it must be that Gunko is a little kid, and we see a silhouette of a certain individual. But
With an
here's
afro.
yes, with an afro. Now here's where it gets interesting, because we see here we go back to the captured straw hats, and one particular person says the resemblance is uncanny, and that person saying that happens to be Brooke. And it's like, well, okay. And of course, the laugh in the flashback is yo ho ho. So obviously the theories are all over the place about what is Gunko's connection to Brooke. Now, obviously the first connection, everyone's saying, "Oh, Gunko is Brooke's daughter." But then I'm seeing someone else. I think Grand Line Review might be holding this one more, that she could be Yorkie's daughter, or we know that Brooke was a soldier in the army of a kingdom way back when, maybe he was like a mentor or someone who was really close to Gunko. Is it possible that Gunko was maybe a princess or someone from that particular kingdom? And then it comes back to, well, how did she get absorbed into the God Knights and that now? And officially, we know that for a fact, based on dialogue in previous chapters, that she is a world noble. How does that all come full circle? So, Matthew, to you for your commentary.
Yeah, we definitely know that there's a possibility that. So definitely, she and Brooke were around each other when she was a child. So we definitely know that at minimum. Again, was it Yorkie? Is she Yorkie's daughter? Is she Brooke's daughter? Is she, what was she part of? That royal entourage. It's like we don't know. That's going to be revealed, but clearly, well, I'm going to point out she's still not referred to as Saint
Right.
Gunko. So it's possible that if you're absorbed into the God Knights, you could be considered a world noble, but your name is not going to be just automatically become a saint. I think that naming convention probably solely belongs to the 19 that went to the 19 families that went to
right.
Yeah, what's it called?
Well, and here's the other thing, and we know that there is a confirmed connection because I completely overmissed this, and now I'm reading it now on the final chapter. But she does in her head say Brooke, and she's going, "Are you Brooke?" And she's starting to run. So they are connected in some way. Brooke, obviously
right, because she only knows him as
King.
Yeah, she only knows him as Soul King. She doesn't know him as
So Brooke. She wouldn't have So she wouldn't have known that he perished, that he came alive because of the soul fruit. So she wouldn't know any of that at all. But so yeah, with that being said, so there is an obvious connection. And of course, everyone, and I have to agree, it's like, okay, I've always been, I've always had a spot for Brooke when it comes to just, because he's of a very different culture and a time period from.
Yeah, he's of a generation predating any of the pirate legends that we know of. He knew of what's his name? He knew of Goldie Roger's Rookie, which probably also means that he also knew of like the other people like Rocks and Big Mom and Newgate and all those people as rookies. So yeah, he's of a generation that predates those legends, and the only people who would be alive at the time are the Emu and the the giants and
the elders.
The elders. So these people, these kind of immortal people, or older people. I'm not gonna say immortal. These older people. He's only gonna know. He's only gonna be around for those people. I mean, he is the guy who, when confronted by Big Mom, called her little
young
girl.
Lady. Yeah, little girl, lady. Young lady. It's like, yeah. So with that being said, to close out this chapter, and this is, and this is where it gets interesting because she was trying to, Gunko was trying to run to Brooke, but then she gets taken over in the mind by a certain individual. And this individual is asking, what is taking so long? Obviously, this individual has tasked them, with doing this thing on Elbaf. But then it's interesting because they say at this moment, the Holy Land is a sea of fire. Now, Grand Line Review pointed out that this means that Malrejawa is under attack. By whom? There's a lot of theories to that, but
that's going to be a very good question because when the what's it called when the I'm pretty sure that the Revolutionary Army probably would not. It's like their attack was a raid and it was specifically to get the slaves. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't do an attack like that again unless they had
numbers.
the actual wherewithal to do a proper assault. And I don't think they're at that yet.
Yeah.
It might be, but I don't think so. So I think this is someone else who, for all we know, it could be Blackbeard.
Yeah, that was the other one that they were saying.
That's the only other person I could. Yeah, that's the only other person I could think of because he's the only one who would be able to wield a force powerful enough to do an assault like that. But if you think about it, that's kind of crazy because that means that you know what that might mean? That might mean that that might narrow down who's going to be the final boss, which means it might either be Blackbeard or Emu, because those two may in fact. Because we know that there's some kind. We still don't know the exact connection, but there is a connection between Blackbeard and Rox.
Right.
And it's possible that maybe he has knowledge that Rox did, and it's also possible Rox knew of Emu. So, because he said he wanted, because Rox wanted to be the king of the world, a title one person holds.
Only one person.
Yep. So it's possible that we might not get a, like, there was that theory that it might be a three-way between like a Straw Hat led faction, the Blackbeard faction, and the world government. It might not be that way. Yeah. It might be a two-way because.
But think of this also. Oda specifically stated that the final big war, the one to close out everything, is only going to happen after the One Piece is found. So they've got this battle going on right now. They've still got another one coming.
Yeah, so either way, there's this might be a but the way that it's sounding, I don't think if Marsh was under assault right now, from the way they're making it sound, Emu taking over. Emu, and it might not just be Gunko. Emu might be taking over all three. And we already know that Shamrock was recalled because there was already a situation going on. So here's what I think. I think because of the severity of the situation, the kidnapping the kids is going to be, it's like, you've run out of time. This is not important. We need you here now.
Well, I think the way, because, and there's a theory now that Gunko could be an avatar for Emu.
Okay.
That's the theory that's rolling around right now. Anyway, but because Emu says we need greater numbers, and then now Emu refers to themselves as Mu. So it says, allow Mu to show you the dominance of God. So I'm looking at this, I'm thinking maybe Emu wants to like clean up now because we need you three back. So I think maybe what's going to happen now is whatever they were planning is going to get sped up really quickly because Emu wants, this whole thing on Marijois to get taken care of.
So you think that maybe the long-term project of like getting because
I think what that means now is that Emu wants the Giants to head to Marijois now. I think
because you can only travel through the ring if you've got whatever
right.
So the Giants can't travel through the ring.
Right, that's true. So I don't know how this is going to go down. But I think what Emu wants is they want the reinforcements now.
I have to confess, if this escalates without the monster trio, I'm going to be a tad bit disappointed. Because I feel like that's where we're going towards, because they're still MIA. And I feel like that's where we're going towards right now. It's that they're going that um here's what I think might happen. I think the three god knights are going to be
recalled.
I think they're going to be recalled right away.
Yeah.
At that point they're like, we don't have time. We need numbers. We can't get the giants here right away. So we need you guys right now. I think that's what's going to happen, which again, like I said, would be disappointing, but I think that's what's going to happen.
Now, here's something in closing before we move on to our next topic. Killingham does say Great Emu. So what that means is that the God Knights probably know about Emu as well. If someone like Killingham, who's not even the Supreme Commander, says Great Emu, then that means that the God Knights are aware of Emu.
Yeah, the existence of emo has always been this closely guarded secret, and we know that most likely the rank and file, what's their names? The rank and file world nobles probably don't know about emu's existence because they've got. Let's face it, you have no aside from emu or the god knights, you don't have any consequences if they were to reveal their knowledge to a commoner. So they're probably kept out of the loop of this because they're loose. The rank and file world nobles are loose cannons. That's what they are because they don't answer to anybody except for the god knights. And the only time that someone actually ended up paying for their actions was Don Quixote Mosgard.
Yes, Mosgard.
Yeah, he was the only one who paid for his actions, and that's because he was helping commoners.
Yeah.
So so when it comes to the average world noble, they don't care. So they're probably kept out of the loop. The only ones who know about it are probably the competent world nobles, aka the
God Knights and above,
and the five elders.
Yep. Well, with that being said, Matthew, we will see. We will see how 1150 is going to turn out. It is coming next week. It's going to be really interesting. I mean, do I think that they're going to expand on the Brook and Gunko connection? Maybe not then and there, but it's probably going to be this thing about where the God Knights go from there. So,
well, it's possible that maybe, like you said, they might find a way to try to accelerate it and actually get the giants through the rings. But of course, who's going to intervene? The Monster Trio.
Well, with that being said, Matthew, it's going to be an interesting time for One Piece next week. Well, with that being said, on to sumo. Last week we had seen how Onosato was leading the Basho at a perfect 8-0. Hoshoryu was trailing at 6-2 along with a lot of other people. And as it turns out, Onosato wins the Yusho with a 14-1 record, and he actually sealed the deal on day 13. His only loss this Basho coming from Hoshoryu, who does have a winning record against him. Hoshoryu himself did suffer a third loss to Sekiwake Kirishima, who himself has a winning record against Hoshoryu. And like Dad said, Hoshoryu got manhandled in that particular match. But with that being said, we are going to have, unless something really weird happens in the next 48 hours, we are going to have the 75th Yokozuna Onosato, who has successfully won 2 Yusho in a row. No complaints from the Yokozuna Deliberation Council. They took all of 6 minutes to decide their vote to recommend Onosato for Yokozuna, and now the board of directors now has to finalize that vote. So with that being said, Matthew, we're going to have 2 Yokozuna again. Onosato will be the first Yokozuna born in Japan since Kisa Onosato a few years back. And the funny thing that Dad found was that it is Kisa Osato's deshi. Your thoughts on how this basho turned out?
Well, it was nice to see Onosato. Onosato's been saying records since he appeared in professional sumo. He, because of the what's the system where if you're
he benefited from the tsukedashi rule.
Yeah, he did the tsukedashi, so he appeared in Makushita 15, and then he
10.
just kept going, and he just kept going up, 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 up. And he beat a record that Takeda Fuji had himself set, and Takeda Fuji started from the bottom. So
yeah, so there is a bit of a obviously when I release my top 10 records, that's a bit of a disclaimer on that one, because there's a difference between starting at the bottom and the Makushita Tsukedashi system. But with all that being said, though, Onosato has not had a losing record since entering sumo. So that in itself kind of is a testament to how he's done so far.
Yeah,
obviously.
and that is something that now Takeda Fuji cannot say, because Takeda Fuji had a losing record this basho. And that is another thing that to me is very interesting. I'm going to say most of, or a lot of the rank and file Maegashira had losing records this basho.
The ones at the top, yes. In fact, all wrestlers ranked from M1 to M5 had losing records.
Yeah, which makes me wonder, it's like, where is everyone going to go?
It's a real logjam.
Yeah, it's like it's like last basho we had a situation where a lot of people got winning records, and we had a bottleneck going up. Now we've got
yeah, and here's the other thing, because there were 2 Ozeki this basho around, but now with the promotion of Onosato, there's only going to be 1 Ozeki, and that'll be Kotozakura. And what's going to happen now is that, and this happened a few years ago, that Onosato will be the Yokozuna Ozeki for this coming basho. And that's what they originally were called back in the Edo days. They were called Yokozuna Ozeki, because it's technically they get a license to be a Yokozuna. It used to be that the top rank on the Banzuke was the Ozeki. So, and those who had the license were called Yokozuna Ozeki.
So, yeah, Yokozuna is kind of more of a recent.
Yeah.
Well, the whole ranking system of modern sumo is a more modern thing. Because sumo used to, well, then again, like if you look at martial arts in general, like the concept of the black belt, the belt ranking system is more of a modern thing. Most of this stuff took place within the last century and a half or something like that. It's very new. So it's kind of more, it's like a lot of this stuff is these like developments are more developments of like the modern Meiji era in terms of like the Japanese centered martial arts. So because they didn't used to have rankings before the foundation of the what were the 2 kyokai that merged?
Well, there always was a Banzuke. They have Banzuke records dating all the way back to the Edo times. So there were Banzukes. It's just that who made them, the precursors to the current. There was Tokyo Sumo and Osaka Sumo. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah, I was gonna say those two. Well, even those 2 did form during the Edo period, but it was like in like the mid or late 1800s or something like that. Yeah. like I said, it's recent. This is like 200 years, and sumo's been around for thousands of years. They're used to, yeah, they're used to not be, before those two separate associations were founded, there used to not be a banzuke. There used to not be a sumo system. There used to be, well, it just depended, but at one point during the Edo period, before the formations of those two separate associations, it just used to be that these sumo wrestlers were sponsored by the various daimyo for personal pride. It's like that's basically how they were doing their forms of combat. Was you are a champion, you're going to face the other people.
So with that being said, I would say Hoshoru did turn out a respectable record after having to go Kyujo in the previous tournament, finishing 12-3, Junyusho, defeating Onosato on the final day. So he definitely made a statement with that. He just has to be able to not lose to other people, and then he could probably start winning Yusho more as well.
Yeah, something that it's like, that I talked to, it's funny that you mentioned Dad, and then we talked about whether it would make sense to bring Dad on the show sometimes, which sometime we probably will for a sumo specific thing. But the thing is that you're not going to win everything, but the two kinboshi that Hoshoru gave out, the two guys were former sanyaku. So to me, it's art, like giving those out were arbitrary, considering those guys were kind of already sanyaku and they were the upper level guys. It's not like he lost to an M17 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Two Yokozuna back on the Banzuke. Who is going to be the next Ozeki to come up? I mean, now we potentially have a couple of people. Daieisho, Kirishima, Wakataka Kage, they all finished with at least 10 wins. Wakataka Kage at 12-3 is going to definitely force a third Sekiwake spot. So it will be interesting, and we'll see how it goes.
Oh, something else I'm going to point out: breakout Rikishi Aonishiki.
Yeah.
He and Hakuoho are the two youngest. They're at 21, and he performed this basho.
That's right. So with that being said, Matthew, we'll see how the Nagoya Banzuke goes. It's going to be an interesting one. I'll send you the link for playing the Guess the Banzuke game.
Yes, because I actually did that this basho. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, everyone, we want to thank you for tuning in to episode 40 of the Samurai Brothers, and we will see you again next time.